Can you believe this nurse made 100K in 1 month? Yes, that's right. Not a year, but 100K in 1 month. Today, I get to interview my BB, business bestie, Dr. Kiiyonna Jones, as she shares her journey from teen mom to 100K months. Let's get into it. Hey, and welcome back to the Nurse Boss Shift. Today, we're doing things a little bit differently, in which we love to highlight nurse entrepreneurs. So we thought, why not interview ourselves as nurse entrepreneurs? So I am going to chat with Dr. Kiiyonna Jones today, and we're going to talk a little bit about her journey, how life has been for her as an entrepreneur, and what's next for her in her business. So welcome, Dr. Jones.
Oh,
What
thank
do you
you
prefer
so much
being
for
called?
having me.
Do you prefer Dr.
Call me
Jones
whatever.
or Kiiyonna?
You can call me whatever. Just don't call me broke.
Right, that part. Well, I am so excited to be interviewing my BB, my business bestie today, and to talk a little bit about your journey of becoming an entrepreneur and how you got to where you are today. So first, like all of our episodes, we'll start off with, what is your nursing background? How long have you been a nurse? And all that good stuff.
So, hey, y'all. Hi, nurse bosses. So, as you guys know, my name is Dr. Kiiyonna Jones. I have been a nurse for going on 15 years, which is just crazy.
Wow.
I actually started nursing non-traditionally. I entered into a master's entry clinical nurse program. It's big on the West Coast, but I think on the East Coast, there's not very many. They're just kind of starting to get over there. But I have a bachelor's degree in public health, a master's degree in nursing. When I received my master's degree, it was not like a FNP. It was called a clinical nurse leader. And so we took set for this certificate for a clinical nurse leader. And they had planned on us, like, I still don't even understand what that CNL was for, like, and I kept that certification for 4 years, but I feel like they wanted to put us in kind of similar to a CNS, but a little different. I don't know, some idea they had. But so I started in critical care. I worked there as a full-time nurse for about 3 years. And then I started doing teaching and also working as a per diem nurse, and ultimately ended up in administration, where I worked as house soup for 5 years before I started dabbling into business. I started in business as a permanent makeup artist. Although people know me as like aesthetics and med spa, it's not where I started. I started as a permanent makeup artist, and my spa was pretty much a day spa where I offered treatments that were non-medical, like the steaming and cosmetic teeth whitening and the ombre brow. And so from there, grew into aesthetics. People started asking me, hey, how did you open up your med spa? And I started helping nurses do that. And so that's pretty much where I am now.
Yes. And I think it's important to know, because there are nurses who have a similar story to yours, in which you were a teenage mom, a young mom, and got your GED and all of that to be now PhD. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I forgot about that. Not for so yes, I had my daughter at 17, and I had to drop out of high school because I had to take care of her. And so I ended up getting my GED, and I went to an adult school where I think it was like a 6-week program. It was in Compton, right here in LA, in Compton, and I obtained like my CNA. And so I worked as a CNA for about, I want to say it was probably like 8, 9 months. I was probably 19 at the time, and I absolutely hated it. I hated it bad, though.
Yeah.
And it was because I worked in a subacute hospital. And you guys can imagine back then, that was probably, gosh, I'm gonna date myself, but like I was 19. So that was like 24 year 20, let me see, my daughter. Oh, that was like 23 years ago.
Okay.
And listen, the treatment for CNAs was absolutely horrible. And
Mm,
everybody knows, so I'm not talking trash about CNAs at all, because I love CNAs, but a lot of times in those skilled nursing facilities and subacute facilities, they do not
mm,
treat CNAs fair. And
yeah.
I was working there and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I ended up leaving. But I was really I knew, it's so funny when I think back during that time. I didn't know I was going to come back to being a nurse, because I left and I thought I never want to even see the hospital again. And I worked in the
Okay.
call center for about 3 or 4 years. And I thought I
Right.
wasn't going to ever want to be back in the hospital. But when I started back school, somehow got segued back into nursing.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I ended up back here. But it was definitely a journey. But when
Hmm.
I started on it, I didn't know how things were going to end up, but
Yeah.
I was determined to just have a different life for my daughter. So
Yeah.
yeah, I did. I had my GED, but I didn't let it stop me, for sure.
Yes. I
Yeah.
just think that is such an amazing story how you went from GED and rose above the majority of the population
Yeah.
to um, get your PhD, get your NP,
Yeah.
FNP, and to become the woman that
Yeah.
you are today. So I just think that is so amazing, and it just
Oh,
speaks
thank
as a
you.
testament that God had a blessing over your life, and no matter what obstacles got in your way, you were going to become the person that that you are today. So yes, kudos to you.
Oh, for
Kudos to
sure.
you.
Thank
So
you. Yeah,
when you
thank
started
you.
your when you started your permanent makeup business, I know that you were making six figures in that business, right? So where was the
Mhm.
shift where you thought like, okay, this is something, because at that point you're almost replacing what you're making as a nurse. So did you think that it was even possible when you started? Were you surprised yourself, or how was that transition?
I You know what? I knew it was possible because there were other permanent makeup artists in my area. One
Okay.
young lady I can think of in particular back then who was charging $1,500. And
Wow.
so to do brows, and it was taking her 2 hours. And she would have
Wow.
3 clients a day. So
Mm,
she was making a killing. So that's why I was so interested in it, because I was like, oh, this is good money. But
yeah.
here's where the shift happened for me. I
Okay.
was still exchanging time for money.
Mm,
And so what I thought was, okay, I'll, leverage my nursing background and I'll get into aesthetics, because, oh, I can make really good money and not have to work as hard. Because even though permanent makeup, doing brows is definitely easier than working at the bedside, don't get me wrong, but it's
okay.
still like bending over
Yeah.
2.5,
Yeah.
3 hours. You can only
Yeah.
make as much as you can in a day. It's only 24 hours. There's a ceiling. And so
Right.
then I was like, okay, well, with aesthetics, I can make a lot more, in
Yeah.
one micro needling session, I could profit $500 for 30 minutes. Like, okay,
Right.
it's looking better. So
Right.
that's what made me make the shift, because I was thinking, okay, I'm tired. Like, cause I was still
Yeah.
working. And so even
Okay.
though I had the clients, now I'm building up the clientele. I was like, dude, I am tired, like still. And like, then I had to really remember why I'm doing this too. Like, I'm not
Mm.
trying to leave one job and then have another job, even though it's my
Mhm.
own
Mhm.
business. So yeah, it's better to have my own, but I'm still missing time with my kids, not being able to
Yeah.
do things and on someone else's time, even if it's just my client. So it was then I
Yeah.
realized, okay, wait, the math ain't mathing. I got to do
Right.
something different. And so
Exactly.
that's how I actually was like, okay, yeah, I gotta something. It's not enough.
Yeah, and I tell nurses all the time from my experience in business is that you can easily go from being a burnt out nurse to being a burnt out entrepreneur if you don't set things up right, because you're still trading time for money. And at the end of the day, like you said, there's only so many clients you can take if your income is dependent on how many clients you see per day. So it's good that you got
Yes.
that
Agreed.
idea pretty soon and made the shift
Yeah.
into what you are doing now. So you got into
Yeah.
aesthetics, and then you were doing that and you learned, and I'm sure or you can tell us that people were probably coming to you like, how did you do that, or how did you start in aesthetics, and then you decided, okay, I'm going to take this knowledge and create a coaching program. So what was the transition into that space, because you were already teaching permanent
So,
brows, which is kind of how we met.
yeah.
Well, one of the other ways we
Yeah,
met in permanent
exactly.
brows.
Yeah.
But then you got into aesthetics and started coaching on that. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I first of all, I've been in academia for 11 years, right?
Yeah.
And I loved it. I really I absolutely loved it. But I never thought that that would transition into my business. Like I would be using those
Mhm.
skills in my business. So to be
Right.
an educator is second nature for me, right? But I had been taking trainings from people
Mhm.
and they were trash. They were absolute
Right.
trash.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I'm, not to too much. I'm legit. Like I literally know what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm like throwing shade at them. It's just like they had the courage and I didn't. So I had
Mhm.
to call myself out on my shit. Like
Mm.
you're not, I can do it. I don't need
Yeah.
nobody to tell me. I don't need the president to tell me anything. I have this knowledge. I can help people. And so because I had already had the momentum from the brow course, because I was helping people start their brow businesses, it was a no-brainer when people started reaching out to me for aesthetics, honestly. Um
Yeah.
and it's really interesting because it kind of took place almost at the same time. Like I was already building because see, I'm a firm believer. You only have to be a couple of steps ahead before you can reach back and help somebody else. And
Yes.
so I was like building and learning as I was also helping people who just had to go through the whole mindset shift before they were even, ready to start their business. But they were like, this is what I want to do. So it was absolutely a no-brainer for me because people were, I mean, when I tell you so many DMs, so many people like just
Mm.
so inspired and wanting to do it. And here I am thinking like, okay, it's like I still am learning, like I'm growing, but I know that I know more than them. So at least
Right.
if they could see that, okay, listen, I'm going to get you started and then you'll see that it's possible because all of the things that you thought you couldn't do, first of all, you were looking at the in the wrong place. You absolutely can do these
Right.
things and here's why. So it kind of went from there to that and then it just took off. But again, I was just one step in front of the other and making sure that I was learning and making sure that I was helping people start their businesses correctly. And yeah,
Yeah.
just took off from there. Who knew?
Okay, this is a question that just came to mind hearing you talking. And I just want to know, do you think that these people's courses that we all, or we both have taken trash courses from several different people, but do you think they're trash because they don't know how to teach, or you think they're trash because they're just trying to make a quick buck off people? I just want to know your thoughts on that.
I have I'm gonna answer that question with a story. I had a
Okay.
client that I trained on ombre brow.
Okay.
This client, by the time I finished training her, she was training somebody else.
Mm.
And I don't know had she even taken and here's the thing about the whole coaching training market.
Yes,
There
let's talk
ain't
about it.
nothing you can do about it. I can't do nothing. I can't stop her. I couldn't do
Right.
nothing, right? Like one thing about like being a nurse, you can't just go to Sally Sue and now you a nurse, right?
Yeah.
But you can be certified. So,
Right.
yeah, so yes, there to answer your question, she trained with me just to start training people. And I
Got
thought,
it.
and I actually reached out to her, and I was just telling her, and I wasn't rude, because that's her thing, and people should vet their people and whatever. But
Yeah.
I was just like, do you think you're ready to train already? And she's just like, yeah, like all it is this and that. And I'm just like, well, it's more to that. And us as being nurses, so it's permanent makeup. You don't have to be a nurse to do it. But
Yeah.
we know about, bloodborne pathogen and like
Yeah.
hepatitis, like, the things that you want to be careful for when you're dealing with blood and blood products.
Right.
But yeah, she went out and started training. So there absolutely are people out there who are just training to make money. And that irks my soul.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. I just want to touch on that.
My soul.
Moving along. That was like a BB insider. A BB insider question. So let's talk about money, because we have a lot of aspiring nurse entrepreneurs listening to us, and I think it's very important to let them know how much you can make, or the potential of how much you can make starting your own business, and taking back trading time for money. So in your coaching business, I know you recently had 100K plus month. How did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? And what was the workup to that?
You know what? The work was really being laser focused on serving people and helping people. That's what it was. Like, I finally, when you reach the point where you can disconnect yourself from your serving of others from money, that's when the money comes. Because when you are connected to it, you're focused on lack. You're focused on like, I don't have enough money. I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to make money. But if you focus on serving and you're solving a problem for people, the money will be slapping you in the back of the head, because you have a solution for their problem. If somebody is thirsty and there is one cooler, and that person is the only one to have a cooler, and they got 100 waters in there, but there's 300 people at the event, they can charge whatever they want for that water.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's 100-degree weather, right? I would pay $100 for that bottle of water, especially if I can't get out. Right? So a lot of people, that happened with me finally realizing that, like, I need to stop focusing on a lack of money. And by then I was still working per diem when I first started, but pandemic had hit soon after. And then I was just cranking out all of my knowledge. I saw these people, like I always say, far less educated. Not to say you have to be educated either. I've learned that my coaches don't have the educational level I have, but they have way more money than me and way more experience than me, because they spent their time learning in the school of hard knocks, while I was learning in academia, okay, and getting my PhD, which I'm not even using, but that's a whole nother episode. But anyway, so I went through that where I was just really focused on, serving and solving a problem. And so that led to me just starting to share my journey, being very transparent, being my authentic self. Like, the best gift I gave to me and my business was showing up as my true self, and not, being the person that people may have wanted me to be, or even I thought they wanted me to be. I don't even know if they wanted me to be that person. It was my assumption, right? But to just start showing up as my true self. And then from there, leveraging, social media, and then becoming the person that people go to for starting their med spa. And that kind of snowballed, and then investing in myself, because I never am without a coach. So paying coaches to help me, really get my strategy and, get my offer together. And that led to my first 100K month, which was $122,000. And I'm a nurse. So, we don't,
in one month.
We count in shifts. In a month. Exactly. And we count in shifts.
And as nurses, we're happy to get that. Right. We're happy to get that as a nurse in a year. Like, we think, I know I thought like, okay, once I'm getting 100K a year, like I've made it. And then you slowly well, you quickly realize, like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, this 100K ain't adding up to nothing. I'm still struggling. I'm
Not
still living
enough.
check by
It's
check.
not enough.
And you made
Mhm.
100K, 120,000 in 1 month.
Yeah.
That's
It
amazing.
was it was it was so amazing, the experience, and it felt like, honestly, I was just watching the account, like, every time someone was, it was just like 10,000 this day, 15,000 this day, and I'm just thinking, and now I've built this course, and now my clients are getting results, of course, and I'm working like 6 hours total for a
Mhm.
total of 6 weeks, because I've already created the digital side. I have, and the real work is just getting the people in, introducing them to the offer, and just
Right.
really showing up, right?
Yeah.
It's been an amazing experience, and then it just, branching off into other things, because
Right.
you start to see the market differently,
Yeah.
and it's helped me so much as far as just really um, being more an authority figure, right, for nurses, to say,
Mhm.
like, not on a bragging, like, oh, I made this much, but
Mhm.
it's like, hey, listen, if I did it, no, you don't understand. You really can. Do you hear my
Yeah.
humble beginnings? Do you understand, like,
Yeah.
GED? I dropped out of high
Mhm.
school, teenage mom,
Mhm.
and like, I've been able to do this. You can
Yeah.
too. So yeah, it
Right.
was a euphoric experience for sure, but it definitely gave me authority and confidence to, like, be able to share my story and get other nurses to do the same thing.
Yeah, and that's why I thought it would, or think it's so important to highlight your backstory, because we know from coaching nurses that they'll give any excuse as to why. We always say this, why you can do it and nobody else can, but your backstory is so important, because it's like, really, if you can do it, anybody can. We just have to put in the work
Yep.
to be able to do so, and
Yeah.
having the right support, the coaching, the community. Because I know you also stated that the coach that you had, you learned so much just from being in the community and not so much from the actual coach itself, because you made this like in the
Mhm.
first couple months of you really taking that scary leap.
Mhm.
We could talk, that's a whole other episode, taking that scary leap to invest
You're
in this
right.
coach who was not cheap. And you did this 100
Right.
plus K month in the first few months of you being with that coach. And I know how you
Mhm.
highlight, and you can touch a little bit on how it wasn't even necessarily the coach at that time, because you're just entering the program, but it was the community around
Mhm.
you and seeing all these other people who
Mhm.
didn't have such high accolades making this money.
Mhm.
And you saw the effort they were putting in and how they hustled so hard and went so hard, and that's what inspired you and made you able to know that you can make this amount of money as well, and touch as many nurses as you did.
Exactly, because community is so, it's so important. I can't even,
I know.
express how valuable it is, and
Hmm.
it can really make or break you. So it's like,
Yeah.
just like being in a community of, like, those who are lazy, who are, just always negative, that can affect you.
Hmm.
Being in a
Yes.
community with action takers and those who are positive, no excuses, that can affect you too. So you have to
Yeah.
choose what you're doing. And I always say that about nurses, because it's like, you will sit at that nursing station and you guys kind of, and I say you guys, I mean we will sit up there and bond over our traumas. But no, and day in and day out and year after year after year. and
Mhm.
and this was validated for me when I worked during the pandemic, because I was, picking up that assignment, that travel 8 week travel assignment, and I'm at the nurses station, and I'm saying, wow, this is a hospital I've never been in, and a community I've never been, and the conversation is still the
The
same.
same.
The
Yeah.
complaints are still the same.
Yep.
These people are going to be here until they retire if they don't get sick first, bonding
Mm.
over their traumas.
Yep.
That's not a good environment to be in. because nobody's doing anything about it. So like it's more important in those situations, I feel like, that you have community so you can have other forward thinkers who can introduce new ideas to you
Right.
and get your mind to just thinking about other possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
that
that's,
is why I created the,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that branched off to a community, the Nurse Boss Mom. That's why I created that. It's like,
Hmm.
because it's so necessary. We really do need each other
Absolutely.
as a community.
And your Nurse Boss inner circle, which I'm in, that community itself in the same, it's, I get you all the time. So I have you in my ear all the time telling me I can do it. But just seeing my other sisters in the community just doing their thing and having different ideas and, oh, I found this out, like that is so important and needed. And I feel like I get on my soapbox about community and coaching. And it's not because I want people to come to me for coaching, but it's just because
Yeah.
it has been so important in my life, in elevating to
Mhm.
the next level. Because same thing, when I was thinking about entrepreneurship, thinking about getting my NP, everyone I work with, like, why would you do that? We make such good money. Why would you? And then guess what? COVID hit. Now everyone hates it. But if I would have listened to them, then I would have
Mhm.
been still stuck, having no options. So it's
Yeah.
so important to have, not just like you said, us as nurses, we definitely love bonding over that trauma at the nurses station, but you need another outlet of people who are taking action and doing different things, especially if you find yourself burnt out and find yourself miserable at the place that you work at. Community is
Mhm.
just so important to have others around you who are doing
Exactly.
major things to show you that you can do it as well.
Yeah, and here's a hint, it's not gonna be your family.
Mm-mm,
Don't think
no,
you're gonna leave nursing station and have it at the kitchen table. It's not happening, okay?
it's really not happening there. Like, you're a nurse, you got this good job making good money. Why would you ever want to leave? All you have to do is work 3 shifts a week. That's so easy.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Ooh, that's
they
such an
not they
insult.
not it. So,
Right.
I want to know, as we talked a little bit about your background. So, what lessons from, because we all pull from our background, and you being a teenage mom was, I don't want to say a long time ago, but it was a while ago. But what lessons do you still pull from that time? What lessons do you still pull from that time that help you out today?
You know, this is really when, before I actually even started school, there was one huge lesson that I often reflect on. And I think I've told this before, but I love to tell it. So I'm gonna tell it again. Um, I wasn't a nurse. I was actually working at a call center and I had probably been there for about 2 or 3 years and they were laying us off. And it was my first introduction to the power of believing in myself. And I take it with me all the time now
Hmm.
because I wanted to go back to school so bad. And but I had bills, and nobody supported it. By now I'm like
Hmm.
21, I think. And now I look back and I'm like, that is such a baby. If somebody came to me at 21, I'll be like, girl, you still got time, right? But
Right.
at that time it felt like I can't do it. I'm old, like people go
Yeah.
straight at 18 and here I am 21 and I had a baby. So I was way more mature probably for my age. But anyway, I had an out. Like I couldn't figure out how I could do it. And then they laid us off. We were getting laid off. And so we got our notice and we were going to get a severance package and school was going to start that January. And I think they notified us like in, probably September. And so all of a sudden they gave us an option to leave early because we weren't going to close until like May or something. And they gave us an option to leave early and I had no plan because nobody knew we were going to get laid off. And honestly, I probably would have still been working there had they not laid us
Hmm.
off. Because even back then, I was told I had a good job, right? And
Hmm.
so by other people, like, oh my God, you making how much an hour, girl? You better. So when that happened, I felt like it was my opportunity to do more and really become the best version of myself. And so I took the early severance package against everybody's suggestion. My mom, my at the time boyfriend who became my husband, who is now my ex-husband, um, friends, everybody. I took, they kept telling me like, what you gonna do? You got this, you got car note, you got this. I was like, I don't know. I don't care, but it's gonna work out. And of
Yeah.
course, we're here, so we know it did work. It did work out, and I won't go in through everything, but that is a huge. So anytime, and things
Mhm.
always go differently than what I want them to do, but
Right.
I always hold on to that, and I know it's gonna work out. 100% of the time, it does. So
Yeah.
the anxiety comes from us not being able to control it because we want to know what the
Mhm.
outcome is going to be. We don't want to just be like, oh, it's going to work out. We want to know like what
Right.
that workout looks like. But
Right.
that has been an important lesson that I've taken with me throughout my journey, and even in entrepreneurship. Is like it's going to work out. When I was crying in the subway parking lot because I know how to pay my lease, it's going to work out. When
Yes.
I didn't have any money and my credit was horrible and I couldn't even get loans to sustain my business, is going to work out. And it has,
Mhm.
because, and the only reason it's worked out is because I never gave up. Failure was just
Mm.
not an option. That's the only difference between those who are actually successful and those who are not. Those who
Yep.
give up and those who don't. That's it.
Exactly. It's so good. So good. In talking about your kids, so you now have your kids are 10 years apart.
Woo!
25,
Yes. So
15.
I have a total.
Bad.
Mm-hmm.
You still look like you're
Yes.
25,
So
so that's okay.
Aw, thank you. I have a total of 5. I have 2 bonus, right? And then I
Yes.
have 3 biological, and they are all 10 years apart. Yes. Yes.
Yes. So, what legacy and building because you become an entrepreneur, you start making money, and then you get to a place where you're like, okay, things are sustaining, so I'm following that. But then as the money keeps flowing in, you start thinking of investments to make and making it more of a long-term legacy. So I want to ask you, what legacy do
Mhm.
you want to leave for your children?
I love that question actually. Listen, I love coaching, right?
Okay.
But it's one of those things where, you know, we don't control what can happen. Anything can happen. The internet, they can cut off, I don't know, whatever. Like it's so I really, my focus is to make sure that my kids have something that no one can take from them. I can't
Yeah.
endorse them how to start a med spa course. So I
Right.
want to take that and the funds from that, and property, get them property, and make sure that my
Hmm.
life insurance policy is there, making sure that the trust is there. That is what's important for me, for my kids. I want to
Right.
create and generational wealth. And it's so cliche to say generational wealth, because I do feel like there's a lot of value in going through the hard work part. I don't want to set
Hmm.
my kids up and then they end up just taking it, blowing it, and don't even appreciate it. So I do want
Yeah.
them to have some sort of working ethic that I've shown them. But I definitely want to make it so that they at least are given a leg up. You know what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
the going to
Yeah.
college, not having to worry about loans, able
Right.
to have the down payment for their home, things like that is so
Yeah.
important for me. And it's not just about money. It's just I don't want them to have to enter into adulthood in debt.
And
That's
struggle. Yeah.
just, so this is what is doing for them. And hopefully they'll take it and they'll, snowball it more for the next generation and the next generation. That's my
Yeah.
hope.
Yes. 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 Okay. So, and our nurses who are listening, since you love coaching, so they're like your babies too.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to the nurse who is on the fence about entrepreneurship? They flirted with the idea, but they're just too scared to take that leap. What advice would you give them?
So, this is going to sound really crazy, but I want two things. I'll give you a upward and a downer. Let's do the upper first, okay? Or which one you want first? You want the downer or the upper first? You want me to take you down and then bring you back up, or you want to
Take
bring
me
up
down.
and then take
Take
me
me
down?
down. No, take me down, and then bring
Okay.
me back up.
Okay, here's the downer. You're dying. We all are.
Well,
There
damn.
is no do-overs. There is no do-overs.
No.
What you are afraid of is in your mind. And one thing about it, you do not want to be on your deathbed wishing you had done anything or living in regret.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the most pivotal moments when I was going through my mindset journey about 5 years ago. I heard Les Brown tell that story, and I always tell it because it impacted me so much. Do you want to be on your deathbed and then all of the what do he call them, the souls that you could have brought to life from the visions that you've been given and the ideas that they're over you saying, why didn't you do this, why didn't you bring me to life? Only you could have. You've been blessed and you've been given this and seeded. This has been seeded in you, and only you could have brought it to fruition, but you didn't because you was too afraid. And there is nothing you can do about it. I think about the older people who look back and they talk all the time about, like, you know, the things that they should have done that they didn't have the courage to do. And now they end up in this, everybody, we're all going to get there.
Yeah.
So do it. Do it. What is the worst thing that could happen? And always people say failure. So what? It's not failure. It's a lesson. You're learning something. Exactly. You're taking something away from this experience. And that's how you know you're alive. If everything was just so perfect and great, that's not living. If we're always up, then how will we know when we're down? How will we know what up feels like if we've never had a down? We appreciate the ups when we've had a down. But if everything is up, we don't even know. So that's the downer.
Okay, now bring me up because I'm
upper
down.
Is the upper is, you guys, we are nurses. And people always, unfortunately, will always be sick to some capacity. Worst case scenario is you go back to being an employed nurse. Is that really the worst thing? But you've tried everything. Yeah. And even in some cases, you get to go back and you even appreciate it more. Because maybe you've tried things and you're like, okay, you know what? I don't want to be trying to handle all that business stuff. I like to go to work and go home and not have to. Great. But you experienced it to know it. Other than that, you won't. So just know you always going to have a job. You always can be an employee.
Exactly.
Don't forget it.
So great getting to know you a little better through this episode. I hope that our listeners I know that they will be able to get some value out of what we talked about today in your journey and where you are now, where you have come and your accomplishments. So tell us a little bit about what's next for Lux Beauty and Wellness and Lux Beauty and Wellness Academy. What do you have coming up?
So pretty much
and Nurse
I
Boss
am
Mob,
just built,
and the Inner Circle
and Nurse Boss Mob. Right. Listen, Dr. Jones is changing the landscape for what nurse entrepreneurship looks like. Yes. And this is an assignment that I have. And it stems from me trying to be accepted early on in the only large nursing entrepreneur organization that was out there, and they didn't accept me, and I never forgot it, and I made it a mission, my personal mission, to be the change that I wish to see. So there's a lot that's going on for, Dr. Jones, Lux Beauty Academy, and Lux Beauty and Wellness. But the main thing is getting nurses to charge their worth and add tax. That's my goal.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's been an amazing conversation. If you guys have enjoyed this episode, I urge you to please share it with your nurse bestie, the one that you sit in the nursing station and complain with. Share this episode with them so that they can get some value and maybe start seeing things different and thinking differently, and getting the wheels turning on how they can make the change in their life to giving them a better life. So please subscribe to the podcast, leave us a comment and a review. And until next time,
Bye.
bye.